So we are wanting to understand graphing sine, cosine, right? And you said up first or down first. Okay, that means that you've memorized the basic shape of the sine curve. Goes like that, right? And the basic shape of the cosine curve, I'm going to make it so that the cosine is 0 whenever sine is 1, and it's 1 or negative 1 whenever sine is 0. I'm making it so that it lines up nicely. Okay? And the blue curve here is cosine. And you can kind of memorize that, and that's great. But these dots that I'm coloring in, I want you to really understand where they come from. Okay? So these dots are important. All right? Do you remember in the previous video I labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the unit circle? I said, so I drew a unit circle, and I said, what did I call them? I said this was 1, I said this was 2, this was 3, this was 4, and then I said 1 and 5 were the same thing. Okay? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Guess what? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 returns us back to exactly where we started. Okay? So these 2 points, this part of the graph, corresponds to this portion of the unit circle. And ditto as we move from left to right.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Let's label, this is the blue graph is going to be y equals cosine of x. So this has period 2 pi, amplitude 1, right? And ditto for sine. Right? Okay. I just want to show you that at this point 1, what are the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate? X equals 1, right? Y equals 0. Equals sine of 0 equals cosine of 0.
Okay.
Okay? Now let's look at the point 2. Okay, x here is 0, which is cosine of pi over 2. And y is 1, which is sine of pi over 2. Both of those things are pretty easy.
Yes.
Okay, how does that translate to the graph? Well, if I want to graph now, instead of using x down here and y down here, now I'm saying for the graph up top that the x value is the angle.
Okay.
Okay? And the y value is cosine or sine. Okay? So what am I saying with these first 2 points? I'm saying the angle is 0. And then with the next 2 points, I'm saying the angle is pi over 2. And then pi, and 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. Okay?
Okay.
And of course, on the y-axis, we're alternating between 1 and and -1. Okay? So I think at this point, you should probably hit pause or something and convince yourself one by one that each of these points on the x-axis actually correspond to the corners of the unit circle. Okay? But then finally, to answer the question that they have in the book, let's say I wanted to, I'm going to use a different color.
Okay.
Let's use light blue. Okay, let's say I wanted period 4 and amplitude 3.
Okay.
Okay? Well, all I've got to do is say, okay, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, 3, and 4. And now I have a period of 4.
And light blue is degrees, right?
No, this is x values because so we're just making up a function now where we're measuring angles however we want. Okay, we're saying that 1 equals 90 degrees.
Okay then.
Okay, that's how you change the period, right? That's all they're asking you to do in this example. So 2 would equal 180 degrees. It's like, we can use feet to measure length, we can use yards to measure length, we can use meters. Okay, we can use degrees to measure angles, we can use radians. Okay, we can make up our measure, right? So we're making up a measure that says 90 degrees is 1, and 180 degrees, that's 2, and so on. And then if I want the amplitude to be 3, I just label this as 3.
And so it'd go...
Oh, -3, sorry. -3.
So
it's exactly the same graph. I'm not changing the graph. So look, all I'm doing is changing the labels on the axes.
So
the graph shape is identical.
So it still would be, would it still be this exact same graph here?
Right. What I've done is I've changed the labels, which means the graph is not even close to drawn to scale, right? So, because look, I'm calling this length 3, and I'm calling that length 3. So it's not to scale. In other words, the y-axis and the x-axis are on completely different scales.
So it should be more like something up here than coming down here.
Exactly. But you can use this as a roadmap to draw something that is to scale. So let me just not to scale.
Just saying.
All right? But the main thing you want to think about before any of these fancy changing period type problems is not memorizing that sine goes up and then down. I mean, you should memorize that. I'm not telling you not to memorize it. But you should know that it comes from the unit circle. It's not just some arbitrary thing where we say, okay, the rule is that sine goes up.
But can sine also go down first? And
that would be if you multiplied it times a negative number.
Something like that.
And I think
weird graph.
you got a little ambitious here with this part.
Yeah, I did actually.
Yes, it could be. So what you just graphed right there, or what I'm slightly fixing, that would be something like y equals negative sine x.
Okay.
Because we're just taking the negative of everything.
Okay.
Okay, so to answer that question, in terms of do you start it out forwards or backwards, up or down, you got to pay attention to positive or negative. All right, sounds good.